Here we are. Welcome back to the Average Pastor podcast. I'm Mark. This is my friend Jeff, my other friend Jake.
Still average. We're all here. We're in the same clothes as the last episode.
I had to change out because I was last episode I had this hoodie sweatshirt on with it says Bidea Donostia under it. That's where I was. That's the name of the church in the Basque language. Bidea, and kind of unfortunate English is like bidet. He's got a bidet shirt on.
Wow. Washing away your sins. Oh man.
Wow, Jake. Love it.
Great church.
That's
great church. You go to bidet church?
Yeah. You go to bidet church.
Yeah. Bidet. We'll take care of all your crap. Come on.
Jake,
once again, starting
keep going.
No, we better stop. We better stop.
Keep going, Jake. What else do we do?
Go. That's good.
Bidet church, actually, okay, in Basque means the way, and Donostia, I think that's the region. It's where we were in Spain anyway. So that was I didn't know if I was going to be cold. We're out here on the back porch again. So
we are.
Hanging out for another round, another conversation. I learned something recently that I don't know that it's something I'd ever thought about. And you know, sometimes you read a scripture that you're like, I don't think I've ever thought of that before. But it was from John. Let me think. I wrote it down in my Bible reading thing. It was, John 15:20. Tell me if you guys have ever thought about this with ministry, because this could be really helpful to people serving Jesus and trying to represent him.
John 15:20.
John 15:20, where he says, all right, remember the word I spoke to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. So just thinking, okay, here's what stuck out to me in that, because I was preaching on, and I feel like there's another scripture, that's what I'm kind of thinking. So I was preaching on Luke, in Luke, where Luke 7, where, and this thought kind of hit me here, and it connected to what I was preaching on. So I had read it that week, and so I was kind of prepared. I'm Luke 4 and John 15 kind of coming together here in this thought. Jesus is like, if they obey me, they'll obey you as well. If they don't, if they wouldn't obey me, they wouldn't obey you as well. Like, I was thinking about how I often think, I think this is a way that I was thinking wrongly. I often think if I did ministry better and more like Jesus, then I would get better results. Like, if I could share the gospel better, this person might come to know Jesus. Like, if Jesus were here doing this, he would get a better result than I would. I think Jesus is saying that's not how it's going to be. Like, you see how people, not everyone didn't respond well to Jesus. Like, he had people turn away. He had people mock him. He was killed, you know?
Right.
And he's saying, like, expect the same kind of thing, you know, with you. And here's where it connected to Luke 4 or Luke 7, because it's where Jesus says, you guys, you'll never be happy. John came neither eating nor drinking, and you say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and you say, oh, he's a glutton, a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And he's like, you guys are like children screaming in you're like children out there playing. And, we played the flute and you didn't dance. We played the dirge and you didn't mourn. And what he's saying is, like, you guys won't ever be happy. Like, we did everything to reach you and you won't be happy. And I was thinking about how that idea of, well, if I could just play the flute better, then they would be happy.
Right.
Yeah.
If I could just do it this way, then they'd be happy. But I had this realization of if I could just preach better, they would respond, and it was like, no, I think that Jesus is saying that's not how it is. Like, even if I were up here and I was the one preaching on Luke 7, it would be the same result. Is that what he's saying there?
Are you trying to say that you're just as good of a preacher as Jesus?
Yeah,
At the end of the day,
that's totally
that's what he's trying to say.
Jesus wouldn't do any better than I'm doing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I've always, because you could always feel like if I could just be better, if I could just do it more like, I mean, if you're listening and you're maybe you're a pastor, maybe you're just someone that has tried to share Jesus with someone, and you had the thought like, well, if I could just done that better, then they would have become a Christian, and isn't, because how else do you interpret that? What Jesus is saying in John? Like, what does he mean then? Because he's, if they, how do you,
a servant's not going to be greater than his master. So don't expect different treatment than you're seeing me get.
Yeah.
I'm getting persecuted. You plan on getting persecuted. Some people respond well to me. Some people don't respond well to me. Expect the same thing in following me and in that ministry.
If they kept my word, they will also keep yours.
Right, because your word is my. You're continuing my message.
We're just
That's
channeling
what I'm
Jesus.
saying. Yeah. We're standing up there with the same message that Jesus is.
Yeah. So I think effectiveness, like, people don't get saved because of eloquence of speech.
Right.
Or that was a really powerful story and you really drew me in, or you made me feel something and I cried. And like, that's not how regeneration happens. Regeneration is a work of God now as it was then. So effectiveness is still by God, whether it was Christ preaching or us preaching through his word. So the same level of effectiveness. Now, I think if Jesus preached that message, I think like I probably would have been more eloquent or displayed better patience,
Right.
But what if I preach it or he preaches it, it's the same spirit that brings new life.
As long as we're being true ambassadors, as long as we truly are just channeling God's
word.
Jesus' word.
Yeah.
In that case, however they would have treated Jesus, they would treat us, because we're so, in that way, linked, synonymous with, closely related with, as opposed to doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're.
But I don't think the application is to step off the stage after a sermon and be like, well, Jesus wouldn't have done any better. That's not what you're saying.
I think it is what he's saying.
How it's instructive to people is, as a listener, like when I'm in the crowd listening to you guys or someone preach the word, I need to have a heart to receive this word of God in a way that, like, this is coming to me from, if you're preaching the word, if you're preaching the truth, let's just assume you are preaching the truth.
But maybe maybe we shouldn't be too quick to assume that, because you read that, and I think we should also feel the weight of, well, I need to say what the master says.
Right.
If
That's the pressure.
I need to represent Christ well. This isn't me up here for me. This is me as an ambassador.
That's the right weight.
Yeah.
That's the right pressure. But
Right.
the wrong pressure is,
Crush it.
I got to kill it.
I got to kill it. I got to crush it.
Yeah.
I'm still laughing, Jake, because I still hear your voice. You're like, I don't know, a couple of podcasts ago, you're like, talking about a young, ambitious leader saying, "Here am I, Lord, send me. I'll kill it." I just got that in my head, but that's just the hilarity of that. But you can feel so it's funny. A buddy of mine came up. This is a few weeks ago before the sermon. He's like, "So we gonna have a good sermon this morning?" I'm like,
how are you supposed to answer that?
No, he said, how good is the sermon on a scale of 1 to... We have this kind of relationship. This wasn't a random dude, so he was just like proud of me. So I poked back. I'm like, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your heart this morning? And how ready are you to receive it? Like, it's that whole... And
it's not the seed, it's the soil.
It is.
Yeah.
That's 100%. That's what I'm going to be talking about this coming Sunday.
You literally just finished a book on this.
Yes. And that's the passage for this coming Sunday, too.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweet.
And I was actually, here's the thing that got me thinking about that in a fresh way is, so we've got this massive oak tree up front. This thing had the mother load of acorns over this last year, like nothing I've ever seen before. So the ground, it's like walking across glass. Just, and I'm like, I got to get some of these acorns up. Well, then, so I borrowed my son's, like a dethatcher, I think is what it is. The amount of dead grass, acorns, and everything that I pulled up out of our front lawn was just shocking. All you do is get this, kind of pretty basic little machine, and you're just dethatching. Well, the ground's ability now to receive warm sunshine, rain that comes down, oxygen that it needs for those roots, I've just increased the health of that front yard exponentially, not by adding more chemicals or more, just digging up so I'm just saying, like, back to the point, how prepared is our heart to receive the word? And you were exactly right in saying that back. I mean, tongue in cheek to your buddy, but that's actually what the pressure on any given Sunday. I hope we do our job in the Bible, right? But if the soil is unprepared to receive it, we could crush it.
That's what I'm saying. That's the part I'm saying is Jesus could throw the seed.
Yes.
Jesus is throwing out the same seed you're throwing out in the gospel.
Maybe.
See this. I think you need some counseling, because I think that's how What I think he's saying. And then later he's like, as the Father sent me, so I am sending you.
Yes.
Like, you are going out with spiritual authority.
So
you're not God. You're not. Can't know the thought.
But what's before in John 15? Abide in me.
Right.
So I think there is both the responsibility of the preacher to get the words right, and the life of the preacher matters. So I'm saying, you're going to get up there. Are you somebody who is abiding in Christ yourself? And are you getting the words of Christ accurately portrayed? Because when I say, well, it's the same seed, and I said, well, maybe, because, and maybe this goes back to the assumption that you said we should have, because sometimes people get up there and let's say they preach a text and it's just like, hey, that was wonderful, but that's not what that text is about.
A lot of straw in there with the gold, silver, and precious.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you didn't accurately handle the word of God.
So that was a different seed you just threw.
That was a different seed.
Because I think the key that you're pointing to in verse 5 of that same chapter, I'm the vine, you're the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him produces much fruit, because he can do nothing without me. So whatever our job is to stay vitally connected to Jesus, if we had that perfectly done, you're right. Whatever would be coming out of our mouth would be what Jesus would have said. Same reaction would be true. Our problem is, okay, back to my front yard again. So I had no idea. So I've got a buddy here yesterday, Lance, that was explaining this to me. I said, so now should I overseed? Is that what you do now that we've opened it up? He goes, oh yeah, it's always a good idea. I said, oh, well, I'll run down here then and get some seed. He goes, oh no, don't do that. And he started explaining, like, especially in the big box stores, when you buy 5 pounds of grass seed, about maybe a third of that is filler stuff that isn't actually pure grass seed. Like he pointed me to this place in Tiffin. No, go there. It's a good price and it's pure just grass seed or whatever. So back to the illustration then
is so ripped off right now.
Right? Me too. And I'm saying, but isn't that also the point of many modern preachers? Like, man, maybe there's some seed, some true truths in there.
You had 25 minutes of filler,
but there's so much filler that is the real seed even able to get to the real soil because it's been so...
So this is an overcorrection. This is a different thing I would correct because you get we just need, that's why we don't get up there and just tell stories. We got to have pure seed, like pure content, pure. Because
you don't just read it. Like you preach it, you explain it,
but
you illustrate it.
But when you say, we because I've heard, just been listening to some different sermons from different places, and and I think so many of these sermons would have been so much better with 6 simple words.
What are they? Because I want to know for this coming Sunday. What are those 6 simple words that'll unlock?
I'll tell you, it came out of one of my favorite biographers, Walter Isaacson. Uh-huh. I'm reading his Benjamin Franklin or whatever biography right now. And I went and I downloaded a podcast that he was on. Is it Lex Friedman, famous podcast guy? I think that's his name. Anyway, he was Walter Isaacson. I was on there, Spotify, listening to it. And he was talking about his whole thing is, his 6 words. Let me tell you a story. That is that's the window into, because that's exactly what that is.
And that's what
Jesus is
did.
telling. Yeah.
From that point on, he will go on to give, it depends on how you count them, about 66 parables, stories, which is, so he's also teaching us how to teach, right? I mean, it's not just go up and read the Bible, though we should read the Bible. But I mean, we should also do what Jesus did and take his truths and tell people a story.
Yeah. So use, because these were like, you could think, these were like pure seed, and it was packed with just commentary and this and this and this and just content. And I think just it's a house with no windows, but it's solid. We're like,
but it's not cooked, it's not prepared, it's not presented in a good digestible way.
Yeah.
So do you think for the preacher, we need to get the message right? How important is it to have your tone match the tone of the text?
Wow.
That we had a discussion about this week. Because if you're, like, one example would be, if you're talking about the joy of the Lord, and your delivery expresses no joy, you may be undermining your own message, right?
Isn't that the irony of Piper's whole ministry? Just the joy and desiring God and the joy of it,
joy,
and
Mark.
it's serious joy. It's like serious, but the tone doesn't match the message.
Because I would say, should the tone I would say kind of, because obviously you don't want to have a tone that undermines the message, but your tone needs to fit the text and your context. Because if it's like Peter's preaching in Acts 1 at Pentecost, and he's just bold and he's giving it to him, and this is, Christ that you crucified, and he's letting them have it, and you show up with that same tone to your people, they're just like, I wasn't there. Like,
I got you.
You're dealing with people that are coming in. It's like, we're reading a story that happened, 2,000 years ago. So to have that tone to that people might not be the most effective communication. So
I think the times that it matters, I was listening to this podcast that is a newer one, and I'm in this group that's supposed to give them feedback, and they were actually talking about a current war that was going on. But 2 of the people on the podcast kind of started giggling about stuff. And one of my feedbacks was, look, it's good in a podcast. Like, we have moments of levity or whatever. If you're in the middle of talking about, like, children are dying in this war, and a giggle fest breaks it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I just did. I'm just saying, like, so I'm just saying back to preaching. I think if we take a serious text, okay, I'll give you a great example. Easter's coming up, right? Or has already been by the time this comes out. So Easter's came out. The churches that almost make a circus out of the Easter time, and it's to be happy and entertaining and and miss the consequence of the empty tomb.
Right.
I'm just saying, you know,
no,
like,
I get it. And I think you can't make light of weighty things, but in order to bring an audience into it and meet them where they're at. So if you're talking about Jerusalem's being besieged and they're getting starved out and there's, situations that, it's First Kings where it's like a mom, they're like trying to, are you going to eat our son? Like the weight of the suffering that's going on in that situation was awful. But it's not a contemporary war. This is like, we're reading history like long ago. We're so removed from it I don't think it's inappropriate to kind of even try to add levity to try to connect and bring them into it. As long as you don't, to be in there and just be so serious because this is weighty, that's not where your audience is at right now. So how do I reach in, connect, and bridge?
It's a good question.
How do you? You often... Because I think you do a good job of...
Yeah, you're kind of the king
I don't
of that.
ever think from your... Because you do a great job of bringing levity to those situations and like, man, just laughing at how crazy that thing is that we just read and wow.
So
but I never feel like you're
diminishing.
Sure.
Diminishing
So
the
like
text.
in that same story where Elisha's servant was panicking, where... this is it. This is the end. And Elisha's like, no, there's more of us than there are them. And he prays, God opened his eyes and he saw the chariots of fire on the mountain. Like, I'm sure that moment was extremely intense. Like, this servant genuinely thinks we're going to die. And to make a joke of like, he's got a math problem. Like, he's like, what do you mean there's more of us than... Like, I think helping understand, now, you can do that because we're so removed from it and be like, I don't think you're really representing the emotions of that servant right now. He was really panicking there. It's like,
Well, sometimes Jesus seems to miss the emotional moment too. Oh, he's just asleep. If he pulled that, like, that's one thing Jesus did. Like, don't try this at home. You know what I mean? You can try a lot of things that Jesus did.
Yeah.
And maybe not that one.
Or your sons of Satan and the name calling towards where that was like, they came to him afterwards, like, I think you offended them. That was the point. Like, on purpose, I offended them.
So I'm still thinking about this, this idea of going out in Jesus' name, doing Jesus, the continuation of Jesus' ministry. And one other, right after in John 20, after the resurrection, again, Jesus said, this is John 20:21, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. And with that, he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven. I mean, that last verse is, how do you interpret that? Because it seems like a continuation of Jesus is building their confidence with, hey, I'm leaving, but you have the Spirit, and this ministry of I'm just, my kind of interpretation was just like, this ministry of reconciliation, I'm handing it to you. And if when you go out and share this message and what you're going to see is the same kind of what you've seen with me. Is that
what I would say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we always remember that it's like the police officer that gives a speeding ticket. He didn't make up the law. He's just the one, doling it out. And so if we tell somebody, you're a sinner, you are unforgiven, you will pay the penalty of your sin, that doesn't put us in the seat of authority, but it does, their sins are on them at that point. We are saying out loud what is true from God's perspective. And so if somebody like that gal that you had met on that airplane, if somebody repents and believes and you're able to say, you are forgiven in Jesus' name, I'm not giving that forgiveness. I'm just saying out loud what Jesus is doing. So that's why even the keys to the kingdom, there's like 3 or 4 times that this kind of language is used. Like if you forgive, they're forgiven. If you don't, it's that idea that Jesus is handing us that ambassadorship thing where we can speak with authority as long as we're speaking in Jesus' name. We don't, it's not vested in us, Yeah.
Yeah. You guys hear all the birds out here? And you hear birds chirping? It's spring. It just reminds me. This change of topic.
You think?
I was getting bored with that.
Do you see the bird? I see a squirrel. I see a
I think we're done with that.
We're talking about repentance. Hey, anybody hear that cardinal?
So here's where this is something I wanted to bring up today. One thing I did is spring is here, spring cleaning. And that bird was my segue into this little bit. And so my life goes to chaos, but I hit a point where I'm like, all right, this is too much, and I spend like the whole day cleaning something, just getting everything back to order, and it's just like there's so much clutter that builds up, and so. Spring cleaning is the topic, but spring cleaning related to ministry, because I think that do you ever feel like ministry gets kind of cluttered and you always have to kind of fight to come back to, okay, it's like so much of ministry is what you need to like stop doing, or you're doing all this stuff and you're busy doing ministry, you're busy, and you kind of have to come back to like simplify, minimalist. It just kind of becomes like, there's time for like just decluttering ministry stuff. Is that something you guys think about, like coming back to, we have an elder time coming up, and I feel like it's not like, what are all the new things we're going to add? It's getting back to like, well, what are the things we maybe have like gotten in the way from these just few things that we really need to be about? Like it's not like leadership, like a lot of leadership is not just new initiatives and adding on new things and all this new exciting ministry thing we're going to do. But a lot of it seems like coming back to, hey guys, remember we need to focus on just like
discipleship.
Yeah. There's some like, an example would be for me, like doing all this stuff, and our elders asked us to write our job descriptions, and in going back, it was like spring cleaning in a way.
Yeah, it was.
Did it feel like that for you? Where I'm
Totally.
like, it forced me to go back and say, what am I doing? Here's what I should be doing, and this is what I'm doing, and it made me just go back. It was such a good thing, and one of the things was like lead the elder team, and I'm like, man, am I connecting with these guys? Am I hanging? When's the last time I hung out with this guy? Or just how do I? Man, I wonder how this guy's marriage is, and just life with God, and what's God teaching him, and it just reminded me. I think there's a lot of clutter that has gotten in the way of me neglecting like a pretty basic, important thing that I do. So
is your spring cleaning more your own life and ministry, or is it more Veritas, or both?
yeah, maybe this is all just personal.
No, I was asking. I wasn't trying to reveal your heart.
Well, maybe it's just a thing on. Yeah, maybe
it's so good. No, I had the same experience in the job description thing where they were like, "Hey, you guys should rewrite your job description," because it should reflect, how we order our day or week.
Did it start with them saying, "What is your job description?" And we looked for the files and couldn't find it.
It's not change. It's write a first draft of a job description. But it was really great for me to be able to do that same thing. Like, is this just aspirational or is this actually what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Like, let's recalibrate to what I should be doing. And, are there things in there that I've attached to my daily, weekly, monthly routine that is actually nothing to do with my calling and my job? And it's a healthy thing to review that. Yeah, for sure.
Because what happens when I'm cleaning stuff is like I find tools that I'm like, that's where those were.
Right.
It's the clutter keeps you from finding the things that you need. And I think that was this is just that time of year for us, coming up with praying and just getting together as an elder team and just where, what did God do this past year and where are things going? What do we need to focus on? And just as a leader, I think that, sometimes it's just about decluttering and simplifying and coming back to, okay, now what am I doing? And what's the one thing that I do for this church that, only I can do, or that that's kind of my main stewardship to stay focused on. Totally. And maybe it's gotten cluttered from just stuff. So maybe that's just a personal.
I'll bet you do that, Jake, on a more routine basis. I'll bet your spring cleaning isn't as dramatic as Mark and I's. You seem like you're a more, I guess, ordered, clear purposed person.
My first thought when you were asking that was I make my job harder than it needs to be because I try to fix things no one's asking me to fix.
Yeah.
Or improve things no one's asking me to improve. And if I didn't try to improve it, nobody would probably say anything.
Right.
So I can create my own problems or not problems, but stress or chaos. So, but I'm always often in critique mode or get better mode. So spring cleaning for me is stepping back and really practicing gratitude of, God we're not that bad. Things are going well. We have so much to be thankful for. So that's a refreshing thing. And then when I think spring clean, clean out the deep freeze where you're getting to the bottom, it's like, we had a brisket down here. I don't know this was in the freezer. All these things, I want to eat this. But other things have gotten piled on top of it. So to get back to things you love that have been covered up I always feel like, I just want to push this aside and teach for 5 weeks in a row. And I love that. Let's do that. So kind of rediscover passions.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys, do you have a job description that you wrote? And do you ever go back to it and look at it and see, this is what I should be focused on? Or
I should. Well, there is a job description somewhere.
Did you, and you wrote it?
Yeah.
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 But to review it, to go back and review it would be good.
What you had, I think you used to do this, but a one line, there's your title.
A one liner, okay, if I had to put my job, anybody's job, into one sentence, what is it?
Do you know what yours is?
I know it has to do with teaching and vision, directional, where we're going and teach the Bible and set direction and culture.
Do you think that should be the job? Does every pastor whose job, is, how would that be different from, do you think Jeff and I, every pastor has that same, your job is preach the word, directional leadership?
Well,
is
I mean,
that
the bigger your staff is, you're
reflect?
gonna have more pastors that have different. Like, we're not asking you to. Maybe it's like we're not asking you to carry a heavy teaching load. We're asking you to do this, or so it could, depending on how big your staff is, and even at a lead pastor level, like especially for you guys, where you have, a good plurality where there might be greater division, like, hey, I focus here, you focus here, or maybe we both focus on these things, but where's our lane in that?
I've even been thinking more about just as I get older, are there things that even are central to what I do, but shouldn't be, because I should be handing them over to the Timothy's, Tituses, the younger leaders in our midst, that would be important. When you see even pastors that you might admire that are doing a great job, but have not yet even begun to hand things over to the next generation, that's a miss. You know what I mean? Like that's part of discipleship. That's that very thing that you were in John 15, that idea that Jesus is saying, okay, I'm heading out. You guys are going to take over, right? That's part of the whole legacy that Jesus instructs his disciples to have. And so I've been thinking about that quite a bit. Like in the next few years, shouldn't there be intentional changes to fit that,
So what have you guys learned or discovered going through your job description or rewriting one?
Yeah, I don't have to look at it. No, I think
ink is still wet, and I'm like, what did I?
The last thing that I put in there, I thought was just good for me to reflect on. What's my main, the important thing that I do, and my one sentence job description was lead the elders, staff, and congregation to follow Jesus with faith-filled vision. And then, the kind of the categories are like lead the elder team, lead the staff team, lead the congregation. And, there's bullet points under all those. But under lead the congregation, the thing I put was keep the focus on following Jesus, walking in obedience and faith. This is visionary leadership. Seeing what Jesus sees and helping others see it as well. Don't let the church become a business. We are brothers and sisters, God's household, built on Jesus Christ. Do the Lord's work in the Lord's way. Humility, confession, dependence on the Holy Spirit, preaching the word, making the glory of Jesus a big deal. And then the asterisk at the bottom, the last thing I said, partnership with Jeff is critical in all of this. And it was cool. I wrote mine before I read yours, and you did you kind of, in a much more eloquent, creative way, brought that in. But I do think that's just like being, working with anyone, and especially as in the proximity and the closest, the way Jeff and I function, you have to have humility to make that work. And if at any point you just decide to become a big deal in that partnership, it's gonna hurt that. It's gonna hurt the church. Totally. So anyway, put that in there. Yeah. What was yours?
Well, one of the things I did was I changed, I think like on our website and everything, it says teaching pastor. And even just at that level, it's either a hyphenated word or two words. And I flipped them. I'm a pastor teacher, because I feel like I want the front end of what I'm doing, like the focus, to be a pastor that also is a teacher. You know what I mean? So I just inverted that intentionally. You know what I mean? Because I think that's a better aspiration and what's, I think, true. So teaching the Bible to the flock, and I would write out stuff about this. And then pastor theologian, I put that, even though that sounds a little haughty or something, but so I used more words. But like in Jude, it says, "Dear friends, I've dropped everything to write to you about this life of salvation that we have in common." I have to write insisting, begging that you fight with everything you have in you for this faith entrusted to us as a gift to guard and perish. That's from the Message. And I just thought that's part of being an older pastor, is to preserve and make sure that in your lifetime it hasn't moved, that we're unflinching from the truths of Jesus, back to John 15. And then ensuring that that gets passed on in good faith. Like, that's true conservatism. You know what I mean? Like, we've got this deposit that's been handed down through generations, and now it's up to us to So as an older pastor,
I love that word, conserve, like conservation. You know, the national park. Like, we need to conserve.
We need to conserve it.
Yeah,
totally. So again, you know, as a younger guy, you kind of want to, and maybe should have permission to, in a way, push against the boundaries and explore and fight for. But as an older one, making sure, like, that's what Paul is saying, man, I'd love to talk to you about some other stuff, but here's what's really vital. You got to make sure that the truth of the gospel is passed on in full integrity.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, like, what should that mean for me in these days, you know?
James, as a staff member, would the rest of the group get their job descriptions, what they, I mean, not word for word, obviously, but if they were to write and they're like, yeah, everybody knows what they're called to do.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I don't know if they would know exactly how to describe it, but what you guys have outlined, we see that on display in the way that you guys lead, and even like lead together, the way that you like partner with each other in those ways. Yeah, I think it feels clear, but it is hard to put on paper, like, oh yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, like you said last podcast, the best way to kill a discipleship culture is to try to create a discipleship culture. It's like, don't try to create a job description. It's just don't ask what I do.
It's a secret.
It's a secret.
What's funny is this happens sometimes where a word will come to mind that I think nails what I'm trying to say, but I don't even know if I could define. And it happened when I was doing this. The word gestalt came to my mind. I was like, I think. So I went and looked at it. So here's what I said. One of my things is be a gestalt for Mark as the lead pastor. Work with me here. So this is how informal our elders are okay with me being. Work with me here. I'm not even sure if I'm using the word gestalt appropriately. Basically, I seek to bring a complementary, unified whole to Veritas's pastoral leadership. Mark embodies and channels the vision, the passion, the culture of Veritas. He's the navigator that keeps us in step with the Spirit for the unique purpose God has for the church family. I seek to complement Mark by being a steadfast brother, friend, and truth speaker. Like, I think that's part of I think that's part of my job description. You know what I mean? Like, and so I thought, and that is basically Gestalt. So then I, of course, had to throw in Tolkien because I love this. You can trust us to stick with you through thick and thin to the bitter end. And you can trust us to keep any secret of yours closer than you yourself can keep it. But you can't trust us to let you face trouble alone and go off without a word. We are your friends, Frodo. Anyway, there it is. We know we know most of what Gandalf has told you. We know a good deal about the ring. We're horribly afraid, but we're coming with you or following you like hounds.
I love that.
You know, just that idea, like, I don't know everything you're supposed to do. I got enough, though.
Yeah, let's go.
Here's what I can't trust you.
And I'm terrified.
Yeah,
and I'm terrified. Yeah. Totally.
I love that. It's like, Jake, here's what I don't trust about you. I don't trust. I don't trust you to go alone.
Yeah,
that's a cool thing to say to someone. It's like I'm going with you, and it's
a sweet moment. I had just finished fellowship.
Do you think there's a correct absence or separation because it's assumed, or do you think this should play a bigger role in a pastor's job description? When you look at the qualifications for pastor and elder, really you have able to teach, you could say, as like a skill set in there, but everything else is character. How much should the pastor's job description be model the godly life to the like set the pace for godliness as, or is it just like, no, that's like permission to play. That's like, you got to have that to get in the game. Or should it be like, no, part of your job is to display the way you lead your home, the way you conduct yourself, the way is that the kind of part of the job, or it's the unwritten? I mean, Paul wrote it. Should it be more prevalent in a pastor's job description?
Well, this conversation happened with a friend of mine. It was like situation, and I think the person was like, hey, I thought my job here was just to like do this job, and then you kind of stay out of my business, my personal stuff. He's like, well, no, like your job is to be a Christian. And that affects all these, like all those other areas of your life are like, he was put like a lot of those things like
but not only be a Christian, be a pace setting exemplary Christian.
Yes. Like, and in those areas that I'm poking at that aren't technically part of your job description, it's exactly what you're saying. That those are your job description.
I think it's like the Star Trek Next Generation idea that is the prime directive, right? That is the 1 Peter 5. Like that is your job under shepherds, is give yourself as an example to the flock. So I mean, I do think it's both. You had me caught there. Like it is permission to play, without which you can't even. There's nothing else you can put on the job description. So that's essential, I guess. Permission to play. But I do wonder if we shouldn't expand on that more in the actual job. Just no, really, you should have a life that is exemplary.
Because I've been thinking about that. It's how is that a way that church has been negatively influenced into the work world, where there's just such a separation from life and work, and it's like you're in ministry. Here's your task. Do your task. And be a Christian, but it's not really front led. Where I feel like Paul front led it. So if you work at, the hospital or Collins Engineering, and you just get plastered drunk at a wedding over the weekend and post a lot of pictures on Facebook or social media about it, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, you're not going to lose your job.
You're not going to lose your job. You laugh about it in the workroom. But you will lose your job, or it's going to affect you in ministry. 100%. Like there is this connection that is unique to other types of employment. So should it be more of a
more talked about, more part of your job eval?
Yeah.
Like how's your
in a sense of, are you setting a pace in life and godliness? Is your family life and marriage and conduct something we want duplicated? And if it is, like I heard a pastor one time saying, I love that. I know last podcast we talked about Mackay went with you to Spain, and we were blessed to take our kids to Zambia when we went. And he was advocating, he was going to a conference, and he's like, I want to take my wife with me. And they're like, well, why don't you take other people you're trying to disciple? That just seems like you're going on a vacation, that's not. And he's like, well, if my wife decides to leave me, I'm done in ministry. So I am investing in disciple. Like this is a part of my job, but for whatever reason, I think the board didn't see it that way. It's like, well, that's just extra. Like you got to do fun things, and didn't see the connection of, if I don't do this and invest in my spouse in this way, it undermines what I'm called to do.
Right. And that's where I would give our elders just an A+. I mean, they're just so thankful for them, because Mackay going to Spain possible because our elders are valuing that exact thing and saying, no, your family. I mean, this is all part of your ministry and investing in those, being a pace setter in that. I think that they have encouraged that, that certainly wouldn't be our elders that would say something.
I just wondered, should that be more front led as part of the job description of a pastor?
Right.
of, hey, we want you to preach, we want you to pastor, we want you to disciple, we want you to have a great marriage, we want you to have a good family, we want you to walk in integrity.
I think there's a lot of pastors who are really amazing preachers and terrible husbands, terrible fathers, but those things are overlooked because you've got a big ministry, and especially even more so when it's the bigger it gets, the easier it is to turn a blind eye to those things, because you have a podcast influencer or radio ministry back in the do people still have radio ministry?
I don't know if they do. I bet they do.
So yeah, there's but what's okay, well, I want to hear, we'll change the subject here. Stuff you've been enjoying, stuff that's been just can be something you're reading, listening to, thinking about. I mentioned the podcast with Walter Isaacson. That was, I love that stuff. Just hearing good communicators tell stories about. For sure. That was fun for me. But you got anything, Jake?
Reading wise?
Sure. Reading, listening, watching.
I finished a little bit ago. Lead Like Shepherds from Larry Osborne. I really enjoyed it. I like his practicality and contrarian challenge of things. So it was a simple read, but it was really insightful and a lot of points that were helpful. And I just started a book. I'm not far enough into it to know if it's like a really good book, but the first part really grabbed my attention. It's called Cultural Sanctification, and it's looking at how did the early church thrive in a very anti-Christian persecuted culture. And he made a contrast between to get into it was really easy to get into pagan religions. It was flashy, a big front door, everybody's welcome, low bar to get in, come one, come all. But the early church, he said, in some cases, you would do a 2-year apprenticeship before we'd even baptize you. Are you legit or not? Are you serious? They would have high bar to get over, and high training, doctrinal training. So when persecution came, it's our people are solid. They've been vetted. And the challenge was, has it been flipped? As the church in the name of evangelism had such a wide door where it's it's super easy to be a Christian, come one, come all. And then will that be able to stand against opposition? And should a church have higher bar standards in discipleship to strengthen a church? So I'm just in the front part, but it's intriguing. I was okay, where are you going with this? I want to read more.
That's interesting, because then you talk about, he's saying from church history, early church history, but I mean, the early church history I know is Acts 2 and all the people. How would he respond to that? Because that seems like thousands of people are getting baptized. And
you see that at Pentecost, and then with the Ethiopian eunuch. But then, as Paul establishes churches, we don't get a lot of cases on baptism. And if you're in a situation of persecution, you're not just inviting anybody to your gatherings. It's maybe
the seeds of holding people off from baptism is Corinthians, where he's I'm glad I didn't baptize.
Sure, there's some vetting there. But you remember when we read that patient ferment of the early church. So it's really looking at more of that first 200 to 300 years.
Yeah.
How did the church function?
Oh, right.
In that.
There were 2 different churches that we saw in Turkey and Greece that the baptismal, which, by the way, in every instance that we saw, a restored church from the first 3 centuries, had immersion baptism tanks, which I find intriguing. Yeah. But one of them in particular, but architecturally, you could make the case for both these that I'm recalling. You go down into baptism, you come back up, and then the door into the church is there. In other words, symbolically, you enter the church
through baptism.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So what I don't know, in those particular contexts, what kind of rigorous catechism or whatever happened before they could do that. How that part wasn't there, but I found that a really intriguing part, that in the architecture itself, they showed that. You know what I mean, as a entryway.
But it does, like, as our culture gets maybe more and more post-Christian, you do say, like, all right, when we're called to make disciples, are we making disciples who can stand in that culture? Are we making disciples who can discern truth and lie? Are we equipped to weather that? Or has it been kind of easy believism type of...
Yeah,
totally. So I've enjoyed that book. Other than that, videos of my grandson get text me.
Oh, nice. How old is he?
There's no shortage of pictures and videos. But I'm loving all of it. Yeah.
How old is he now?
He'll be 1 in May.
Wow.
Obi-Wan. His first birthday. Obadiah.
Oh, nice.
Obi-Wan. Little Jedi themed birthday coming up.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
A Star Trek reference and a Star Wars reference in one episode.
And Lord of the Rings. This we've had sci-fi and fantasy. I know.
Oh, I didn't understand. I was going to ask you about the Star Trek reference because I didn't get it.
The prime directive. There's one prime directive. You know what I mean? And that.
No, I don't know what you mean.
I'm with you. I just nodded along like, oh, one prime directive.
What? They had a prime directive?
Yeah, James, back me up.
I didn't watch The Next Generation. I don't know.
I think it was true of all the Star Treks, though, right?
What was there? Because that's why I was there.
Is it like to go to places?
To go, yeah.
They just.
I can't repeat it.
I never understood the show. I never. But
I should be. If only we had a producer in the room that could do this for us.
We'll get emails, I'm sure.
A guiding principle of Starfleet. Let's see. The non-interference directive. It is, to seek out new life and new civilizations. That whole deal.
Oh, okay. So every episode, are they meeting new?
Yeah, they're
just
the
exploring and they're finding
allowed,
new.
Yeah, and they can't hinder or advance a culture. They're there to explore and et cetera. I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, you called me out, man. All I remember is Prime Directive, the North Star.
Okay, this is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing. We're going to repeat it.
Yeah, I think we're still.
What are you enjoying right now?
Well, first of all, I just have to say, Jake, I admire your hunger to learn. Like you're constantly reading, and I mean, you have to be one of the most well-read guys. Read books on ministry, and
I try to read fiction, and it's really hard.
Really? So I try to read books on ministry, and it's really hard. I can't. I don't know. I feel like it's already hard for me to read. You know, so like I just enjoy more like a good biography and
I'll
stuff.
enjoy a good movie more than a fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Which the people are always like, the book's better than the movie. The book's better than the movie. I've never experienced that.
Because you haven't read the book. You just watched the movie.
Well, no, there's been books that I've read where
you're saying no, the movie is as good as the book. I've never.
I always think the movie's better.
Oh,
now there's things where it's like, that scene wasn't in there. That was really cool. But in the movie, there was an actual explosion. I just read about it. They're like, I want to see it. I want to.
Oh,
well, so one of the, and I'm actually more into fiction. I just started a new Solzhenitsyn. One of his great novels that I didn't even know about. I think of like Gulag Archipelago and stuff, but I do enjoy fiction and stuff. If I'm just driving or doing yard work, as opposed to something nonfiction like a theology book or something. But I gotta give a shout out to Gavin Ortlund, What It Means to Be Protestant. And I just appreciate in this day and age just saying, this is what we believe. These are the dogmatics of what makes us evangelical Protestants.
Yeah.
We always, at the end of a VST year, we invite, in fact, I really strongly invite everybody to give class feedback. And we have this whole form to poke and prod. And we go through those. Like, it's not just a novelty. Like we want to do better at what we do. Well, we got one student that was pretty critical, but the idea was I'm coming at this from an educational perspective, and it seemed that rather than give a broad perspective on religion, you just kept telling us what we should believe. And I was like, I take that as a compliment. In a way, like normally I have a wounded conscience. Normally I take criticism and I'm like, oh man, we really, and there were some things in there that I'm like, yeah, we believe that. Okay. But on that one, it reaffirmed to me, and honestly, it's changed how I'm going to do session 1 of the new VST, to be able to just state boldly and on the front end, oh, this isn't a Western Civ class, nor is this a comparative religion class. We are here to ground you in orthodoxy. Now, along the way, we'll come to things like baptism or end times, where different Christians might think a little differently, and we're surely going to expose you. But that wiggle room is actually pretty minimal you know what I mean? Like, nor is that our job. There's a lot of places you could go to find a comparative religions or that kind of that approach to education, even theological education.
So to reinforce orthodoxy.
Yeah, I want to say, actually, that's exactly what we're going to be doing in here. And unashamedly, I think that's our task. You know?
Wow. I feel like you guys are doing some above average pastor stuff. I'm going to bring this back down to average by going below average. I'm on like episode 5 of Invincible. So on Amazon Prime.
And what, I don't know what that show is.
No.
That's like what's that, season 1 of Invincible? It's just like an animated, is it anime? Is that considered, that's just animated, movie that my kids watch. And
is it like a comedy?
No, it's not, definitely not a comedy. It's like a mildly inappropriate show that I wouldn't recommend
that you just
watch. That I endorsed. I'm saying, you guys, I felt like I could share that because you guys were talking about these amazing things.
To bring us down to earth.
I'm trying to bring it down to average. So anyway, no, I don't know. I watched it because I know that people my kids have watched it and have talked about it, and I want to be able to talk to them about the stuff they're into. So I watched it, and so far it has a very interesting story arc, and it's like these guardian superhero figures, people. It's like but it's pretty it's pretty graphic, and I don't know. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to jump off the train or continue on.
Have you guys watched or begin to watch The Americas with Tom Hanks narrating? Where it's like a Planet Earth type.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Is that
you
good?
Guys, you need to. I've only watched a couple of the episodes.
What's it on?
I don't know. We have someone that can tell.
I've been thinking I should watch that too.
Okay, let me just give you an example.
I think that's what it's on.
It's on what?
I want to say Disney Plus.
I feel like
James.
It'd be Peacock because it's on
Peacock.
NBC.
Peacock. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Honestly, you know what I did? Just on YouTube TV, which is how we get our TV. I just subscribed to and so I don't have to belong to Peacock, I don't think, to get it to just record it or whatever. All I'm just saying, like, one of the episodes is on what goes on in Florida, like in the Everglades and just the whole Gulf Coast.
Oh, sure.
And these creatures that live there that live no other place, and even like these little owls on what's that island? Not Monte Cristo. Anyway, just fast. I had no idea. This is our nation, you know what I mean? And it's not just about the United States; it's about the Americas. But and Tom Hanks, what a great voice to listen to as he's describing.
Okay, I'm just adding it now. This is a funny story. Just this morning, my wife and I were going through our budget, our every dollar Dave Ramsey app, and trying to figure out all the red. We're doing our spring cleaning. This is a weekly cleaning.
Savannah, what did you
We're on a
subscribe
mission.
to?
Honestly, we're just like, we need more money. I know we tell people all the time, like, you don't need more money. Just be content. I'm like, we need to increase the cash flow around this place, man. It's crazy.
You need another side hustle?
I know. And so, I don't know what's going
Some
on.
ads on the podcast.
Can we
Let's get AG1 on this. Better help.
Totally.
They're on every podcast.
Dude, hey,
Who would?
we should start doing. Yeah. So I'm going through there, and she's like, "What's this Apple charge for? $114." You know, I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to find that, where that charge comes from. So I go in, I'm looking through my account, and there it is. All my subscriptions and stuff. And well, one of them was for the Dave Ramsey app, $100. It's an annual thing. And that's worth every dollar because that probably keeps us on point. It's great.
Clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's working like a charm.
Like a
The
charm.
results speak for themselves.
Yes. I need more money.
Dave Ramsey, if you ever listen to this, is horrified right now.
Sponsor. Dave Ramsey, sponsor us.
Mark,
I'll reach out.
I know where you can get $100 more.
Boom.
Never mind.
We just lost an advertiser.
We lost the advertiser. We had him and then we lost him. Okay, it's worth. Okay, but then where's the 14? And I'm like, there was a Peacock subscription to the Peacock.
I thought that was free.
No, and it's like whatever it was, and I'm like, who subscribed to this? I'm telling you, it's like there's water spigots on all over that are not like money leaking out all over the place, you know. And so I canceled it this morning. And now I want to watch a show on it. But the good news is I have it till like April 28th or something.
Go.
So
There you go.
But
Every now and then, because we watched Silo and all these, there's a lot of different, so I'm not above just watching, pop culture stuff out there or whatever, but this one I just find anything that highlights just nature, and this one especially, you don't have to go to the Himalayas to find this stuff. This is all in the Americas, you know what I mean? I think it raises like the appreciation for what we have right in our country. So even if you are planning a family vacation or whatever, and there's a whole lot of places you could go and experience and see some things that are very different than your everyday life, and it's with a car ride instead of a flight over the waters,
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well,
Sure.
next, one of the things I want to do is I just, it was on the plane. I was watching the Invincible. I'm on like episode 5 or whatever. I do, for next time, maybe I can come back with whether I decided to keep going or not. But I need to talk to some of our college students about what they like about it. And I'll have to go do a little more research on that. I'll let you know. It's worth watching. But all right. Well, I think that's about it. I'm still still a little jet lagged.
Time for a nap.
It's time for a
Don't
nap.
do it. Don't do it.
Do you guys siesta ever? Do you take a siesta?
I'm amazing at it.
You're good at siestas.
I can fall asleep like that. We've had people over and I've fallen asleep sitting in a chair. I woke up and like, where'd the company go? Like they took selfies with me laying on the couch, sleeping. Just left. Yes, I love naps.
You love a good nap.
Yeah,
I mean, you love a good nap, but do you like? Because
Practice it.
Sunday afternoon is nap time for us. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And come home, put on PBS, America's Test Kitchen, or Ask This Old House, and I'm out. I love it.
Just fall asleep to that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
All right. Well, Jake, I think it's a wrap today. You got any closing thoughts? You want to send us out with anything?
Enjoy the spring. This is like Jamie said, this post-Easter.
Yeah.
Late April.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mark is still jet lagged from
Like-
a month ago.
He's still recovering. He's still recovering. No, I don't have anything profound to say.
Okay. Well, I do. We're recording this before Easter, and I'm just excited to see what God's going to do. And you guys do baptisms? Or
This Sunday.
Oh,
We
okay,
got- we got
nice,
baptism on
awesome.
Sunday.
But do you guys still do at the Paramount? You guys still rent
We're
for
going to the
Easter?
Paramount.
Okay,
Yep,
2
Easter.
services,
3.
3 services. Wow. So look forward to.
You guys
this
are having a Saturday Easter service.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited, John. We're going to come. Johnny's like,
you
always
are?
home. I never get to go to Veritas Iowa City special service, so we're going to all go together.
So
Saturday.
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah. So by the time people listen to this, they'll already know how Easter has turned out. But I am excited. This
Just it's what he raises from the dead. Spoiler.
There's the mic drop.
yes.
There it is.
There it is. Well, he's
still risen.
He's still risen. How about that? And well, it was a good conversations today. Good catching up with you guys, and maybe I hope something that you heard could encourage you along the way. So, we'll see you guys next time. Have a great week.